If you really boil it all down, strip away all the politics, all the complex economics, what do people really need at the most basic level?
It's security, isn't it? Just knowing you're safe.
Exactly. Knowing you've got food, a roof over your head, health care, education for your kids, the basics.
Right.
But the huge question is, how do we actually set things up to guarantee those things? How do we take something as fundamental as farming, the basis of everything, and make it, well, efficient and fair for everyone?
That really is the core question, isn't it? For any society trying to build a genuinely stable, progressive future. And that's what we're diving into today. We're looking at a very detailed, phased approach called the progressive utilization theory, or Prout.
Prout, proposed by Shrii Prabhat Ranjan Sarkar.
Correct. And we're zooming in specifically on Prout's plan for agriculture, how it builds this whole system around farmers' cooperatives.
Yeah, and this isn't just some, pie-in-the-sky dream. The sources we're looking at lay out a real step-by-step plan. It's designed to tackle economic vulnerability in rural areas, bit by bit over time.
It really recognizes that you can't have true security across society if your production system, especially food, is just based on guesswork or pure profit motive. It has to be about guaranteed well-being.
Totally. So our mission for this deep dive is to walk through this plan step by step. We'll look at the economic thinking behind it, maybe the psychological side too, what it asks of people.
And why this cooperative system is argued to be, well, fundamentally better than the other models we've seen historically: communes, sharecropping, even just standard private farms.
Right. And let's maybe state the core idea up front, the main takeaway we need to keep in mind as we go through this.
Good idea. The absolute foundation is this: production has to be based on consumption needs.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
It means society first figures out what everyone actually needs to meet those 5 minimum requirements. Food, clothing, housing, education, medical care. First, the target.
And then you design the system to hit that target.
Precisely. And the cooperative structure is presented as the best way, the ideal vehicle to organize things to guarantee that output reliably.
So you shift the focus from, say, maximizing profit in the market to ensuring everyone gets what they need.
Exactly. It shifts the whole mindset from competition to collaboration. And that progressive promise, that potential, is what makes exploring this framework so, fascinating.
Okay, let's start unpacking this. Usually when we talk agrarian reform, we think land redistribution, social justice, that sort of thing. But Prout seems to start somewhere else entirely with, a cold calculation about efficiency.
That's a really sharp observation. It does start with a fundamental challenge to the way things often are, where you have huge numbers of people tied to the land, but maybe not very productively.
Yeah.
The sources are quite clear on this. They argue that for peak economic efficiency and dynamism, you really only want about 30 to 45% of the population working in agriculture.
Wow, okay. Only 30 to 45%. That's a massive statement about how society should be structured.
It is. It implies a huge reliance on technology and farming, right? And it means you need a serious plan for industrial diversification.
So the cooperative system isn't just about growing more food. It's also about freeing up potentially more than half the rural population to do other things.
Exactly. To move into industry, primarily, but without losing their security or their livelihood. It's a vision of industry and agriculture working hand in hand.
So a smaller, really efficient farming sector feeds everyone, allowing the majority to build wealth in other areas.
That's the idea. Better overall societal wealth. But to even get that efficiency going, you first have to tackle this problem of land that's just not being used properly.
Right. And that means we need to define land differently, not just by how big a plot is, but how well it actually performs economically.
Yes. And this brings us to the crucial issue that kind of necessitates a move towards collective management. These things called uneconomic land holdings.
Okay, let's nail these definitions down. They seem important for the whole phase plan later.
Absolutely critical. So first you have economic holdings. Pretty straightforward. This is land where the money you get for the crops, the market price, is actually more than what it costs you to grow them.
So you factor in seeds, fertilizer, machinery, labor costs, everything.
Everything. Your output value is higher than your input costs. It's profitable. It works.
That's what you want, obviously. But then there's the flip side, the uneconomic holdings.
And this is where the system often breaks down. Uneconomic holdings are plots where the market price you'd get for the produce is less than the cost of production.
So even if you farm it perfectly with current methods, you're guaranteed to lose money.
Precisely. So what happens? The individual landowners, quite rationally, just don't bother cultivating it. Why sink money into something you know will be a loss?
Okay, so you end up with these patches of land, maybe scattered all through a village or a region, just sitting idle.
Exactly. And no single owner has the means or the incentive to make the big investment needed, maybe deep plowing or major irrigation, to make it potentially profitable. It's just too much cost for one small plot.
But if you look at the village as a whole production unit,
Now you're thinking collectively. That's the Prout insight. An individual farmer can't afford that big tractor or pump for just 2 acres of poor land. But a cooperative, managing hundreds of those marginal acres together,
suddenly the math changes. They can afford the investment.
they have the scale. They have the collective strength. They can potentially turn all those previously gistless plots into productive, profitable land. That collective opportunity is huge.
Which leads directly to the big goal, this idea of an agrarian revolution,
Yeah.
but done carefully in stages.
Yes. The cooperative system is positioned as the vehicle, the tool, to eventually bring all the farmland under this kind of efficient collective management.
Okay, but before we see why the cooperative is supposedly the best way, we need to look at what it's replacing, right?
Yeah.
Why do the other systems fall short?
Exactly. We need to understand the problems, the flaws in the alternatives. The commune system, sharecropping, private farming, to really grasp why Prout advocates so strongly for this cooperative path. It sets the stage for the progressive solution.
Okay, let's tackle the alternatives. Starting at, well, what the sources seem to view as the bottom of the barrel, the commune system.
Yes, the critique here is really fundamental and it's deeply psychological. The core issue is the denial of individual ownership, either outright or in practice.
And that matters because
Because when you take away that personal stake, that feeling that your effort leads to your benefit or your family's benefit, you kill the incentive. People lose the drive to use their skills fully, to innovate, to work harder or smarter.
there's no direct reward for going the extra mile.
None. And the sources use this incredibly vivid, almost bleak analogy to paint a picture of what happens then.
The one about the oxen.
That's the one. Workers become like oxen, moving around an oil grinding mill with their eyes blindfolded. Think about that image. They might be working hard physically, walking miles and miles.
But they're just going in circles. No forward progress.
Exactly. No forward progress. They're stuck in intellectual staticity. There's no reason for them to think creatively, to apply new science, to solve problems in a better way. Their lives just stagnate at the level of physical labor. Repetition without elevation.
And this isn't just some abstract philosophical point. The sources claim this leads to real-world failure, right, in terms of actual production.
Oh, absolutely. The claim is stark. Countries that adopted this kind of communal farming have utterly failed to produce enough food for their own people.
Leading to, well, what the sources call a pitiful situation.
Yes, they point out that these countries trying to be self-sufficient under a commune model actually end up having to buy basic food supplies from capitalist countries' systems built on the very individual ownership the commune rejected.
So, ironically, they become dependent on the system they opposed just to feed themselves.
It's presented as a stark lesson. Ignore that basic human psychological need for personal incentive, for the link between effort and reward, and you risk undermining the entire national structure. The prediction is they'll just keep needing help, begging bowls outstretched, until they change the system.
Wow. Okay, so the commune model is critiqued pretty harshly.
Yeah.
What are the next step up, supposedly? Sharecropping.
Right, sharecropping. It's seen as slightly better because it does tap into that incentive psychology, at least partially. The basic idea is if I produce more, I earn more.
So there's more freedom, more direct connection between work and reward than in the commune.
Definitely. But, and this is a big but, the sources identify 4 really significant flaws that make sharecropping ultimately unstable and often exploitative.
Okay, let's break those down. What's the first one?
The first is underutilization, basically inefficiency creeping back in. Imagine a sharecropper managing land for maybe 3 different owners, say 20 acres total, maybe because they're feeling a bit lazy or they don't have enough hired help, or maybe just lack of funds in their own household. They decide farming 10 acres is good enough for their family this year.
So the other 10 acres just sit there.
Potentially, yes, or aren't farmed intensively. The landowners don't get the share they expected, and perfectly good land isn't used to its full potential. It's individual inefficiency causing collective waste.
Okay, that's flaw number 1. What's next?
Number 2 is interesting. It subtly encourages capitalism and agriculture, but kind of under the radar.
How so?
Well, a really successful sharecropper might end up managing a lot more land, say 30 or 40 acres, than a small landowner who only owns maybe 5 acres themselves. These big sharecroppers can get quite wealthy.
Right.
They're essentially running a large farming business, but without the legal burdens, the capital investment, or the responsibilities that come with actual land ownership. It's like capitalism without the accountability.
Which leads straight into the third flaw, I bet.
You got it. Hired labor idleness. If a sharecropper gets big enough managing all this land, what do they often do?
They hire other people to do the actual work.
Exactly. They become managers, often idle themselves, while relying on hired hands. So you get this unproductive layer developing, benefiting from the system without doing the direct labor.
And the fourth flaw.
This one's about power dynamics. It creates a new feudalism. Think about small landowners, maybe people who inherited a bit of land but don't have the money or equipment to farm it themselves.
They're stuck.
They are. So they become dependent on these successful, larger sharecroppers to farm the land for them. The sharecropper becomes the dominant figure, setting the terms, controlling the process. It's like the old landlord system, just with a new face.
Wow. Okay. And there was something about a legal loophole, too. Using India as an example.
Yes, this is presented as a really serious systemic problem, showing how the structure itself helps people avoid regulations. Land ceiling laws in India, for example, limit how much land an individual can own.
Right, to prevent huge estates.
But the large sharecropper, who might be effectively controlling far more land than the ceiling allows, spread across multiple owners' plots.
They can argue they don't own it.
Precisely. They claim, I'm not the actual owner, and they slip right through the laws. The sources use that great phrase. They escape through the holes in the nylon dragnet of the law.
A perfect description of how legal complexity can be exploited. The law aims for fairness, but the system provides cover.
So sharecropping, while better than the commune on incentive, has these deep structural flaws. Which brings us to private enterprise or just regular private farming.
Better again, presumably. Strongest individual incentive here.
Definitely the strongest incentive for the individual owner, but as a system for the whole society, it runs into major problems with stagnation, especially for a large part of the population.
And that's mainly down to?
Lack of access to finance and technology. Your average small farmer just doesn't have the capital for the big investments needed for modern, really productive agriculture. We're talking tractors, power tillers, high-yield seeds, complex irrigation.
Stuff that costs serious money up front.
Huge money. So they're often stuck with old methods, maybe just scratching the surface of the soil, not getting the maximum yield, and crucially, infertile or marginal land.
They can't afford to improve it.
Exactly. The sources suggest up to 100% of such land might lie unused because individual farmers lack the capacity, the money, the equipment, the knowledge to do the drainage, or the deep tilling or soil treatments needed. A collective, however, could potentially afford that.
So you get stagnation for many. But what if the government doesn't put in land ceilings, maybe trying to help those larger private farmers who can afford the tech?
Then you risk the opposite problem, what the sources call undesirable overaccumulation. You swap widespread stagnation for potentially massive economic inequality with a few very large wealthy farms and many struggling small ones, and that creates its own social instability.
So it's a bind. Private enterprise drives individual effort, yes, but it fails to optimize land use for everyone, and it locks many people out of the technology needed to improve things.
That's the core argument, the failure of these alternatives. The psychological dead end of the commune, the inefficiencies and loopholes of sharecropping, the stagnation and inequality risks of pure private enterprise all build the case for needing a different collective approach, the cooperative solution.
Okay, so we've walked through the critiques of the other systems, the psychological traps, the legal dodges, the money problems. Now we land on the proposed solution,
Right.
the cooperative system.
Yeah.
The sources frame this as, well, the superior way forward, right?
Yes, explicitly presented as the best system for both agriculture and related industries in the modern era. And its strength comes down to one core idea, the power of collective strength. When farmers pool their resources, their land, their labor, they gain power they simply don't have as individuals. They can collectively pressure the government for financial aid, for better infrastructure like large-scale irrigation. They can negotiate better prices for things like high-quality seeds.
It gives them leverage.
Huge leverage. And critically, it allows them to tackle those previously uneconomic lands, that infertile land we talked about.
The stuff individuals couldn't afford to fix.
Right.
Yeah.
Collectively, they can invest in improving it. They can bring in the technology, manage the water, apply the treatments. They can turn wasteland into productive farmland, boosting food security, and potentially growing valuable cash crops. That's a transformative potential right there.
Turning weakness into strength, basically.
That's a great way to put it. And they can manage the land itself more efficiently, too. If you have adjacent plots that are flat and have similar soil,
You can just remove the fences or boundaries.
exactly. Merge them into larger, continuous fields. Imagine how much easier and faster it is for a tractor to work one huge field instead of constantly turning and navigating around dozens of small boundaries. Saves time, saves fuel.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Though there was a note about uneven land, right?
Ah, yes, a crucial practical point. If the land is hilly or undulating, you have to keep those divisions, mainly for water management. Especially if you're relying on gravity for irrigation. You can't just flatten everything. Physics still applies.
Right. Efficiency can't override basic hydrology. Okay, so the practical benefits seem clear, but there's a big hurdle, isn't there? The human element.
The biggest hurdle,
Yeah.
arguably, and it's purely emotional. The incredibly strong human attachment to land. We can't just gloss over this.
Yeah, the sources describe it as one of the most powerful attachments people have, tied up with identity, family history.
Absolutely. And that dramatic description really brings it home. A farmer might generously donate sacks of grain, no problem, but ask for even a tiny piece of their land.
They feel like their ribs will break because of the pain in their hearts.
That's the depth of feeling we're talking about. It's visceral. You cannot just force the system on people. It won't work. It has to be handled incredibly carefully, acknowledging that deep connection.
So how do you get people to buy in? The sources mention 3 reasons why people might donate land.
Yes, according to Prout, it generally only happens under specific conditions. 1, maybe to save the rest of their land from some bigger threat like consolidation or government seizure. 2, for a really compelling humanitarian cause they believe in deeply. Or 3, driven by a powerful spiritual motivation that helps them see beyond purely material ownership.
So the implementation has to be sensitive to that. It needs to build trust.
Exactly, which is why the phased approach is so important. It starts gently, focusing first on the land that causes the least pain to potentially collectivize. This brings us to phase 1, socialization of uneconomic holdings.
Okay, phase Y, the first step. What happens here?
The focus is only on those uneconomic plots, the ones owners aren't really farming anyway. And crucially, 2 things happen immediately. 1, the buying and selling of any agricultural land is stopped, frozen. The land base is secured for the community.
Okay, no more land speculation.
And 2, and this is vital for overcoming that attachment issue, the original landowners remain the legal owners of that uneconomic land they've put into the cooperative.
Ah. So ownership doesn't change hands initially. That lowers the fear factor, right? Addresses the commune critique.
Precisely. Ownership stays, but the responsibility for farming it shifts to the newly formed cooperative. The co-op is made up of those who agreed to pool their marginal land to try and make it viable together with government support.
And how does the money work in this first phase, if there's profit from this previously useless land?
The initial structure is designed for fairness and to show immediate benefit. If the landowners used to hire labor, even if unsuccessfully, the net profit generated by the co-op from that land is split straight down the middle. 50% to the landowners as return on their asset, and 50% to the laborers actually working it within the cooperative.
So even owners of bad land start seeing some income, and the workers get a direct share. That seems like a decent starting point.
It's meant to be. And Phase I isn't just about farming plots, it's also about immediately using that new collective power for bigger things, collective welfare projects.
Like infrastructure.
Exactly. Using local resources, maybe harnessing a nearby stream with small dams or embankments for better irrigation, generating some local power, perhaps setting up small local industries based on what the area needs. Things no single farmer could dream of doing alone.
And this is also where that big population shift starts, right? Moving people off the land.
Yes, immediately. You have to start relieving the pressure on the land. Phase I mandates establishing 2 key types of industries, agrico-industries and agro-industries.
Okay, let's clarify those terms again. Agro-industries are?
They process the farm's output. Think local canning factories, small sugar mills, oil presses, maybe textile units using local cotton or wool. They take the raw product and add value right there.
Got it. And agro-industries?
They make things for the farm. So workshops producing simple tools or parts for power tillers, maybe maintaining the tractors, producing organic fertilizer, making irrigation pipes. They support the agricultural process itself.
Creating local jobs directly linked to the farm's success.
Exactly. And you also set up the logistics producers cooperatives to handle equipment and maybe finance, consumers cooperatives to supply daily goods to the members. But none of this works if people aren't on board mentally.
It's psychological piece again.
Absolutely critical. So Phase I also includes major education reform with a strong emphasis on moral education. The goal is to foster that cooperative spirit, to get people thinking about the collective good over just narrow self-interest, to start gently chipping away at that intense land attachment by showing the benefits of working together.
Okay, so Phase I is about proving the concept on the toughest land, building trust, setting up support structures, and starting the mindset shift. Only then do you move on.
Only then. You absolutely have to demonstrate success with the uneconomic holdings first. Show people it works, that it's profitable, that it's fair. Once that trust is established, then you can move to Phase II, integrating the economic holdings and really accelerating the industrial shift.
Bringing the already profitable land into the cooperative system.
Yes. And as soon as that happens, the incentive structure changes dramatically to really reward the actual work being done.
How so? The profit split changes.
Big time. The split now shifts heavily in favor of labor. Only 25% of the net profit goes to the landowners based on their land contribution. A full 75% goes to the laborers. And remember, laborers includes anyone doing physical or mental psychic work for the co-op.
Wow, 75% to labor. That's a huge shift. What's the logic there?
The logic is that labor, the human effort, skill, and intellect applied, is the primary generator of wealth and value. Land is necessary, but it's passive without labor. This split powerfully incentivizes participation.
And the landowner. They still get something, but it pushes them to get involved.
Exactly. It's a clever setup. The landowner gets their 25% share just for providing the land. But if they also participate in the work, physical or managerial, they also get a share of that massive 75% allocated to labor.
So the most profitable thing for a landowner to do is actually roll up their sleeves and contribute to the cooperative success.
Precisely. It makes active participation the most rational economic choice. It combats idleness and fully integrates everyone into the productive effort.
And the main goal of Phase II, alongside integrating this land, is really pushing that industrialization.
Relentlessly. Rapid, large-scale setup of more agrico and agri-industries. The explicit goal now is to make the rural population more dependent on industry than on agriculture. This is where you really start seeing that 30–45% target becoming achievable.
So fewer people farming, more people in local manufacturing and processing, all linked together.
Yes, and all alongside ongoing educational and cultural work to solidify that cooperative mindset. By the end of Phase II, the system should be demonstrably improving living standards, reliably providing those 5 minimum requirements, and showing that production geared towards consumption, not just profit, really works for everyone involved.
All right, so Phase I built trust on marginal land. Phase II brought in the good land and ramped up industry, shifting the economy. What happens in Phase III? This sounds like where it all comes together.
Phase III is called rationalization and full integration. It's about finalizing the structure and optimizing everything based on the principles. Land distribution itself gets reevaluated.
How so? It's not just based on historical ownership anymore.
Not entirely. The sources say it now depends on 2 key things. First, what's the minimum amount of land realistically needed to support a family at that guaranteed standard of living?
Okay, a needs-based assessment.
And second, what's the actual capacity of the farmer or the family unit to use that land effectively? It becomes more about matching resources to capability and need, aiming for sustainable productivity for everyone.
And this phase also locks things in legally, makes the cooperative the main game in town.
Absolutely. This is where the old ways are fully phased out. Laws come in that explicitly prevent landowners within the cooperative system from hiring their own separate individual laborers or using landless laborers outside the co-op structure or engaging in sharecropping.
So basically, if you want to farm or work in agriculture in that area, the cooperative is the only viable and, by this point, the most beneficial way to do it.
That's the intention. It channels all agricultural activity through the cooperative framework. And scale becomes important too.
Scale of the cooperatives themselves.
Yes. They need to figure out the optimal size. The goal is specifically to avoid becoming like those massive, unmanageable collective farms seen in places like the former Soviet Union or China, where local connection and initiative could get lost.
Keep it human scale, manageable, accountable. Avoid that intellectual staticity problem again.
Exactly. Efficiency, yes, but also responsiveness and human connection. And the cooperatives now operate under what's called a dual mandate.
Okay, a dual mandate. The first part is obvious, I guess, produce food efficiently.
Right. High quantity, high quality, using science and tech, keeping costs down. That's the economic engine. But the second mandate is much more progressive, more uniquely Prout. The cooperative also has a responsibility to actively encourage its members to achieve maximum psychic and spiritual development in return for the minimum necessary physical labor.
Whoa, okay. Maximum psychic and spiritual development. What does that mean in practice? That sounds ambitious for a farm co-op.
It is ambitious. It means the cooperative isn't just about producing food, it's about enriching human life, using the wealth generated not just for basic needs, but to invest back into the members' growth funding, cultural activities, arts, scientific education, philosophical study groups, libraries, minimizing drudgery and maximizing human potential.
So work should enable a richer life, not just sustain a basic one.
That's the core Prout philosophy, and that term psychic labor we mentioned earlier becomes really important here.
Right, let's define that better. It's not just physical work being rewarded.
No. Psychic labor is the mental work, the planning, the management, the innovation, the teaching, the organizing, the research that makes the whole cooperative function and improve. It's recognized and rewarded as being just as vital as the person driving the tractor or harvesting the crops.
So by phase 3, everyone's contribution, mental or physical, is valued. And the money side is fully integrated too.
Yes. At this stage, the profit distribution is simplified. 100% of the net profit is distributed among the cooperative members according to their labor contribution, physical and psychic. The idea of a separate landowner share fades away because the former landowners are now fully integrated members, benefiting primarily through their active participation.
And this whole process, by the end of phase 3, should have achieved that population target, the 30–45% in agriculture.
That's the projection. By rationalizing land use, maximizing efficiency through technology and cooperation, and creating robust local industries, you solve the rural unemployment issue and free up the majority of the population for other productive work, all while ensuring food security.
Which leads us to the final stage, phase 3, total societal security and wealth. This sounds like the ultimate goal state.
It is. It's the culmination of the whole process. At this point, the sources claim conflicts over land ownership are basically gone. Agrarian problems are solved because the system is geared towards maximum production for guaranteed consumption.
And those 5 minimum requirements.
They are easily and reliably provided for everyone. Food, clothing, housing, education, medical care. The baseline of Social Security is just built into the system's functioning.
It sounds like a vision of complete optimization.
That's the language used. Maximum utilization of the collective physical, psychic, and spiritual wealth of every single village or community. Phase 4 marks the end of the transition. You have a balanced economy, full employment, and a system where economic activity fundamentally serves human well-being.
Okay, but to make this stable, to stop it from somehow sliding back into old problems or being taken over, there have to be strict rules, right?
Yeah.
Especially around money and control.
Absolutely critical. The structure of shares and governance is designed as a firewall to protect the cooperative ideal from collapsing back into, say, capitalism.
How does that work? Shares are initially based on land contributed, you said.
In the very beginning, yes, to get buy-in, but the type of share is crucial for the long run. This is a non-negotiable point in the sources.
Okay.
Cooperatives must issue dividend-earning shares, not profit-earning shares. This distinction is absolutely fundamental.
Why? What's the danger of profit-earning shares?
Profit shares often work like, say, fixed interest bank accounts or preferred stocks in a company. They might guarantee a fixed, steady return regardless of how the cooperative actually performs in a given year.
Okay. And the problem there is?
If those exist, they become very attractive to outside investors, to capitalists. They'll buy them up because they offer a safe return. Then share prices start fluctuating based on market speculation, not the co-op's actual health.
And before you know it,
the cooperative turns into just another commercial business, run for the benefit of shareholders who might be miles away and have no connection to the actual work or community. The whole spirit is destroyed. It becomes a standard capitalist enterprise again.
got it. So dividend shares are the safeguard. How are they different?
A dividend is strictly defined as a share of the actual net profit the cooperative earned in a specific period. If the co-op has a tough year and profits are low, the dividend is low. If they have a great year, the dividend is high.
So the return is flexible, directly tied to the collective success or failure. Risk and reward are shared.
Exactly. It keeps the focus internal on collective performance. The sources compare profit shares to something called the Sanja system in traditional agriculture.
Remind us what that was.
The Sanja system was where a landowner might give a sharecropper a fixed amount of money or grain up front before the harvest. It didn't matter if the crop then failed due to drought or pests. The sharecropper still owed that fixed amount back. It put all the risk on the producer.
Ouch. Yeah, okay, so preferential profit shares are like that, guaranteeing a return to the investor regardless of the producer's reality. Dividend shares avoid that trap.
Correct. And the final piece of the firewall is governance. How are decisions actually made? How do you stop wealthy members or outsiders from taking control?
This seems crucial too.
Absolutely non-negotiable according to the sources. Voting rights in the cooperative must be on an individual basis. One person, one vote. Period.
Not based on how many shares you hold or how much land you originally contributed.
Absolutely not. If voting power is tied to shares, then wealthy individuals or groups could simply buy up shares and effectively buy control of the cooperative. Democracy becomes, as the sources put it, a farce, just like in capitalist systems where money can effectively buy political influence.
So one member, one vote, keeps the power with the people actually doing the work, physical or psychic.
It ensures that the control rests with the active participants, not just the passive investors or historical landowners. It safeguards the democratic and collective nature of the enterprise.
It really seems like every element, the phases, the industries, the shares, the voting, is designed to build towards this specific vision and protect it. Hashtag tag 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 outro. So wrapping this all up, our deep dive really shows Prout's cooperative system being presented as much more than just a farming technique. It's positioned as a comprehensive solution, aiming to fundamentally fix deep social and economic problems.
Yeah, it systematically tackles the failures identified in the other models, the commune's lack of drive, sharecropping's instability, private enterprises' inequality, through this carefully staged progressive transition.
You really see the journey laid out. Phase 1 is about building trust and proving the concept. Phase 2 ramps up the technology and shifts the economy towards industry. Phase 3 rationalizes everything and solidifies the cooperative structure.
Culminating in Phase 4, that state of guaranteed security, the 5 basic needs met for everyone alongside maximum use of not just land, but human potential too, freeing people up for more than just survival.
But, and this feels like the biggest but, the final provocative thought maybe, this whole grand structure depends entirely on a massive shift in how people think and feel, doesn't it?
That's the ultimate challenge highlighted. This huge change in collective psychology, moving away from centuries of deep personal attachment to land, away from purely individual self-interest, towards genuinely valuing the collective. They can't just be ordered from above.
It can't be forced.
No. The sources say it needs proper psychic preparation through internal urge and external pressure happening gradually, adjusted with the time factor. You can have the perfect economic blueprint on paper.
But if the people aren't ready for it, if that internal shift hasn't happened,
it won't work. The real test isn't the elegance of the profit-sharing formula or the voting rules. It's whether a society can actually cultivate that deep shared sentiment. The feeling that collective well-being and maximizing everyone's potential is more important than individual accumulation.
that's the true agrarian revolution, perhaps the internal one. Engineering that collective psychological shift needed for such a progressive, future-focused vision to actually take root. A huge undertaking.
Indeed. Well, this has been a fascinating exploration. A huge thank you, as always, for bringing this detailed source material for us to dive into. Really gets you thinking about the possibility.
Absolutely. Thanks to you too, and we'll catch you all on the next deep dive.